I guess what I'm trying to get at is that we've always talked, going back 4 administrations, about diversifying the economy and getting away from the auto industry. I'm just wondering, in your mind, I mean, you don't want 85% major manufacturing, do you?
Well, I want to be careful, you know, and want you to be careful because words matter in this instance. Manufacturing is a very good thing for our state and frankly any place else in the world. When I went to China, Japan, Korea, those countries are going after manufacturing in a very big way. I think we'd be remiss if we decided to go away from manufacturing. We have to go after it, but we have to go after things in addition to automotive. That's what I'm trying to say. I'd be happy to grow our life sciences sector in terms of medical devices or the aerospace sector, you know, 100% over the next year or two or whatever the right time frame is. Because as those sectors grow, we become stronger as a state. We don't become weaker because we're a major manufacturing state. We become weaker when we are a single industry state. And that's what Michigan was in terms of its manufacturing base. It was all automotive.
Question here.
Yes, I'd like just to follow up on that. First, I really applaud your Buy Michigan initiative. I think it's really great. What about taking it deeper and wider into the Michigan manufacturing sector to allow consumers who wish to choose to buy Michigan products a portal, a website that they can identify and find those Michigan products and have them shipped to their door? Organizations like Amazon will white label their logistics system to allow that sort of thing to happen. Okay, you could do it very cheaply. Second of 3 ideas. For 100 years, Southeast Michigan has needed a container port. Okay, the cheapest way to export something out of your country is by water, and it's ludicrous that we ship stuff by rail to Chicago and then send it by boat around the Mackinac Bridge down the Detroit River and out the St. Lawrence Seaway. Okay, or we send it by rail, which is expensive, to Montreal, or now shortly to Halifax by rail. Okay, so you know, why not a container port? The city of Monroe wanted to build one. Governor Granholm actually blocked it. Okay. One of the Canadian railroads was the partner with the city of Monroe that wanted to build it. Third idea, the Federal Reserve appointed me as the United Nations representative to a working group which built the concept, global standard, of a single window for trade facilitation. Australia has implemented this, South Korea has implemented it, Italy's implemented it, the United States has not. We have 20,000 manufacturers in Michigan who could manufacture wonderful stuff. What about exporting it? Make it easy for them to export. In Australia, if you want to import or export anything out of the country, you go to one website, fill the information in. 105 forms go out behind the scenes to the different government departments automatically.
Was there a charge for this? Are those good ideas, guys, or not?
Yeah, I mean, the web portal idea is a great idea. I'll talk to you right after this. I love that idea. And then, you know, Michigan does have some, we do have some one-stop portals that we put in place. Are they great? Not yet, but they will be. We want businesses to be able to come in and go to a one-stop portal, the Michigan One-Stop it's called, and get all their fill-in information once, and then have it shoot out on the back end. The concept they're doing is absolutely the concept we believe in at the state of Michigan. So I applaud your ideas.
What about shipping the stuff to Chicago and bringing it up past the bridge?
Yes, I mean, so on all 3 issues, there's actually some work underway, Stephen, to make it happen. There's actually 2 different groups that are working with Michigan State University on this whole transportation logistics piece. The challenge that we have with the Port of Monroe and even in Detroit is that to really do a lot of the water-based shipping, you need deep water ports, and those are not options in Monroe. So that's why the discussion of Halifax as the easiest option to move goods through Michigan is one that seems to be gaining an awful lot of traction. I don't know if you've been involved with the groups that are working on it. There's 2 separate groups that are working on it, one through the Detroit Regional Chamber known as TransLink, and the other one, some other gentleman out of Wayne State University and Michigan State called the Great Lakes Global Freight. And so we have been working with both of those and actually trying to push them together so that we have a unified effort in terms of what we're going to ultimately do. So on all 3 issues that you raised, all good ideas. There is some level of activity underway. We can certainly move it along a little bit faster. That's a very fair criticism. In fact, on the export front, we actually have built out a staff. MEDC really didn't have a staff to really support business export. We now have that. In fact, one of the brightest people in terms of export that I've come across was on the MEDC staff and was doing kind of a nothing job, for lack of a better description. And we announced that we wanted to create an export effort, and she was very reluctant to come into the job because she felt we wouldn't put any resources behind it. So we went and got a federal grant at $1.5 million. We've also committed another $1.5 million from MEDC. So we now have, for at least the next 3 years, $3 million that we'll be using to assist companies with a variety of different export resources. And we actually have a web portal that's due to launch, I think, within the next week or so. So if you want to give me your card, I'll actually point you to, we've got it working behind the scenes right now. It's not live. I'll point you to it so that you can go and get all kinds of information in terms of the resources we're prepared to provide. And I mean, we're even considering companies who need to get on a plane and go to a trade show in some other country, providing some portion of the cost to do that out of this resource that we have. So we're trying to be as aggressive as we can on the export front.
Question here.
Hi. I know that the state of Michigan has taken the initiative to centralize the way to do business with the state and through a one website entry, like what you're talking about. But what happens when businesses are trying to look for procurement opportunities is that working with large businesses, they haven't consolidated that same way. And I just found out, I went to a workshop in New York last week, that IBM is really pressuring and working with other large businesses to create that same kind of portal system. Is there any way that we can do that with large businesses in Michigan so small businesses can make that easy transition?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have the Michigan OneStop, right? But Sharon, we should talk later, because we discussed a little bit about your trip to New York earlier today. But we have a lot of things out there for small businesses as well to work with the state of Michigan. We have the it's called the Contract Connect website. I think everyone in this room is probably aware of that. And those are things that we want to do. We want to work with small businesses. As Mike was saying, we want to work with Michigan-based companies. And so we need your ideas, because we are doing things right now to enable the small businesses to work with us. We want to look at best practices that other states are doing. We have some best practices, like our contracts website. We have Bid for Michigan, which I'm sure you're aware of as well. But those are some of the things that we have right now that are kind of self-service web portals. We also do a tremendous amount in our procurement division around vendor outreach. We hold several, I think we hold a couple hundred or several hundred vendor presentations where we try to reach out to the small companies in the state of Michigan and teach them and work with them and educate them on how they can do business with the state of Michigan. But again, we need ideas from groups like this to help us improve that process.
Mr. Finney, who do we have in China today that's representing the state?
We don't have a representative on the ground in China. So part of what we're doing in terms of our international strategy is trying to decide where it makes sense for us strategically to have some kind of a resource around the world. And we just haven't decided yet. We think we need a little bit more information. The trip that we did to Asia recently gave us some insights. We have representatives that are stateside who spend an awful lot of time working, one working Asia, one working Europe. But we know that's not adequate given the experience that we had this time around. So I don't have we're not prepared to make a commitment yet, but we do see a need for us to have a much more significant international presence than we have right now.
Why wouldn't you just automatically go to China?
Well, I think, with everything, we need to make sure that we understand what the outcomes need to be in order for it to make sense. And we really don't understand that just yet. It's challenging to do business with China. Companies aren't just, standing around saying, tell us where to come and we will set up shop there. It's a little bit more of a process than that. We need to build a relationship, and so some of that can be done, by being there. Some of it can be done here. Frankly, having Governor Snyder on the trip with us opened doors that, frankly, I don't think we would have gotten open had he not gone. So some of it is, we've got some early work to do. We're trying to figure it out. And we honestly think that we have to concentrate so much of our effort on existing Michigan businesses through our economic gardening process that, and if we're successful with that, then it'll create more opportunities for us to do some of the international stuff that we want to do.
What surprised you when you got over to China about what they did or did not know about us, Michigan?
Everybody that we met with, I think we met with 30 some odd companies, multiple different levels of government, and they knew us chapter and verse.
Did they know that we're a unionized state?
They absolutely know that. They understand that. You know, they have challenges with labor issues even in China. Sometimes we don't see it, we don't hear about it, but they have issues over there, and they understood it. The thing that they found most interesting about Michigan is that we have this incredible manufacturing know-how, and they feel they can learn so much from us. They talked about trying to get, you know, exchange programs going where our students from our universities, our engineers from companies here will come there and work in their environment and teach in their environment. I mean, those are the kind of things that we spend an awful lot of time talking with business leaders and government leaders about over there.
Did they tell you that they thought a unionized state was a deterrent to expanding here?
No, 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 we didn't hear that any place. I mean, in fact, the level of discussion that centered around Michigan being a union state may have been 1% of the discussion. It may have come up a couple times in the course of our discussions. And it actually, the time that I remember it most was with Nextier, a company that has a facility in the Saginaw area in particular. There was an acquisition by a Chinese company called AVIC, and they actually described their relationship as being extremely favorable, but didn't hear a whole lot of concerns about Michigan being a union state.
So you didn't get the perception that unions were a deterrent to attracting jobs to Michigan?
Not as a part of this, this visit. That was not a major issue for us.
And would right to work making Michigan that attract more jobs?
You know, I honestly don't know. You know, if you look at what's happened with organized labor over the past several years, in the last 3 or 4 years in particular, a lot of really interesting things have happened. Within the auto sector, you know, they're very competitive now. A lot of the legacy costs are gone. Some of the upfront labor costs have dramatically changed. Michigan's auto companies are able to compete very effectively. Other manufacturers in our state are able to compete very effectively. I don't think that our problem is one that is driven by the fact that we have unions and having a right-to-work state is going to make that much of a difference. I don't think the lights are going to go on. In other words, we're going to have this massive influx of business if we became a right-to-work state. I think we're going to have to work hard at convincing folks that we have the right talent here and the right business climate if we're going to be successful.
And so I assume you share the governor's thinking that a debate over this would be divisive and counterproductive.
I totally support the governor's position.
I know you support him, but do you believe him?
Absolutely. No, I absolutely believe it and support it.
Okay, I mean, but wouldn't that be fun to have labor taking on business?
Well, it's unnecessary. I mean, why pick fights when we have opportunities to work together to get things done? And I think that's the governor's mantra. I mean, well, why pick fights when we don't have to?
All right, you said we lost 800,000 jobs. Please, if you can, give me a number of how we can judge your success at the end of the first term. How many of those jobs should we or do you hope to get back?
Well, I don't know that I have a number. What we want to see is we want to see Michigan be a best-in-class state. And so, you know, the governor has his dashboards. I encourage you to go to the website to take a look at those. Those dashboards are measuring things like the unemployment rate, you know, per capita income growth, other factors that really speak to the vibrancy of a state, you know, population growth. And so if we're, you know, an upper tier state in the top 10 in those factors, then we're making an awful lot of progress, because a lot of what, you know, we have to look at, to just pick an absolute number, suggests that we ignore the broader U.S. economy. And so we really have to make sure that we're benchmarking ourselves against other states and the overall economy to ensure that we're in the upper echelon as opposed to being, you know, in the bottom 2 or 3 like we've been for the past several years.
Okay, with your permission, could I just press you on that for a second? Not that I will get a number out of you, but as we try to evaluate, you certainly in your head must say, man, if we can't buy $100,000 jobs out of that 800,000, we're just not getting it done.
Yeah, so I think that's a fair analogy. If we don't get 100,000 at the end of this term, we definitely are not getting the job done.